Okay. I think we're in. There we are. Okay, we're in. Hopefully some others will be joining soon. Good Life is in. I'm not sure what she's working on right now. But today's kind of a casual stream. Nothing really planned. Just wanted to come in and do some ESO stuff. Stevie was working on a new character. He did actually had an existing Warden character, an old tank setup that he had not used for quite some time. And so he re-rolled that recently into a Wood Elf. And we're currently waiting on him to rename said Wood Elf. It used to be an Imperial? Used to be an Imperial, right? Yeah. So that's a new character, and we may actually work on a new build for that here in one of the streams coming up. I don't think we'll get around to that today, but we'll see what he's up to. Hope is floating around. I know she's got a Warden that she's been wanting to play as well, but I don't know whether she'll be joining us either. So this is kind of an impromptu stream. No idea what's going on. Nothing planned. Just farting around, basically. So I do have... I put together, more recently, a healer build. This is actually something that I've been wanting to do since... I'm trying to remember when the sets were released specifically, but it's been a good 6 months plus. It was one of the former DLCs that were released, the dungeon DLCs, and when they came out with sets. I want to say it was when they released... let's see, what's... Look here. In the store. Was it the Deadlands? No. That wasn't DLC. Okay, I must have rolled past it. Scalebreaker. Wasn't Mark Karth, wasn't Horns of Rage, Terrastorm. Wow, I must be missing it because it wasn't Flames of Ambition. Well, here, I guess we can do it this way. But one of the sets that I'm running is Scorian, which came out at the same time as Magma Incarnate, which is the monster helm. So we can actually go in here. The Dread Cellar. So whenever the Dread Cellar came out, yeah. We had Scorian's Feast, which is one of the sets that when it initially was released I looked at and I thought this might actually make a very good back bar set for a healer. And Magma Incarnate, being the monster helm, also is another really, really solid set for healers. So I wanted to put these two together. And the third set is SPC, Spell Power Cure. Of course, has been a go-to set for healers now for quite some time. So it's those three in combination. Using a back bar for healers specifically, they don't get as really much use out of a Maelstrom type weapons. There are a few of the other ones that give additional resources or different sustain, but I haven't found any of the back bar setups to be all that great. So for a healer, I like doing a split bar setup where basically you're running one set, in this case Spell Power Cure on the front bar, and then the back bar is a completely different set. And then essentially, so these are both 2 pieces, and you end up with 3 pieces on between the body and the jewelry. So in this case, I've got a Scorian's robe, shoes, and breeches, which are the 3 pieces, and then the back bar. And then Spell Power Cure is the staff, the necklace, and the gloves and belt. So when I'm on the front bar, Spell Power Cure is active. When I'm on the back bar, Scorian is active. And the reason this works so well with sets like Scorian is because this is a 10-second buff. Well, it's a 10-second that if you heavy attack again within that 10 seconds, then you get another roughly 10 seconds out of it as well. So it's a really nice back bar set, and you can activate it on the back bar and then easily flip back to your front bar while this remains active. So other than losing the 4-piece weapon and spell damage, when I flip back to the front bar, you retain the 5-piece. And this particular 5-piece is kind of interesting because it doesn't require, you can just heavy attack. It doesn't require an additional skill on the bar to activate. You see here, when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you gain an imbued aura for 10 seconds, granting you and up to 3 other group members 296 magic and stamina recovery. It's got a 20-second cooldown overall, but this is a really nice set because it allows you to either combine the magic and stamina recovery with the second one here. If you deal damage with an additional fully charged heavy attack before that 10 seconds from the first one runs out, now I've given myself and the group 296 weapon and spell damage for an additional 10 seconds. So you can have virtually 100% uptime on this just from heavy attacks, where the first 10 seconds is recovery, the next 10 seconds is weapon and spell damage, and then you can flip back and do the same thing, repeat the same thing over and over, so you can go back and forth. Or if your group is fine on recovery, I can do one charged, fully charged for the recovery, and then immediately follow it with another fully charged heavy attack, which then puts me into immediate damage mode. So it moves immediately to the second stage. It still only lasts for 10 seconds, so you end up with a roughly 10 seconds of downtime. It's a 50% uptime on the weapon and spell damage that way. Or you can take advantage, if you can time it right, you do have to time it within that first 10 seconds, as close to the end of the 10 seconds as you can, to heavy charge or heavy attack again in order to get the second buff. But either way, as long as you're heavy attacking on the back bar, your group is going to be benefiting either from recovery or from the weapon and spell damage, both of which are useful contributions from the healer's perspective. And the other bonuses on here are actually not bad for a healer as well. You get max magicka, mag recovery, and while you're on the back bar, you get the additional weapon and spell damage. Spell Power Cure, you're gaining 2 magicka buffs and then a weapon and spell damage buff. So technically, when I'm flipping back and forth, that 4-piece is identical. So even when I'm moving back and forth, I'm technically not losing anything, because they both have weapon and spell damage. So when I'm on the front bar, 4-piece is weapon and spell damage. I lose it, but when I flip to the back bar, that 4-piece is also weapon and spell damage. So you're never losing the weapon and spell damage. You're retaining both magicka buffs, and you're retaining both the magicka and the recovery buff at all times. So this is a great setup, and the beauty of a split bar setup like this where you're running 2 separate sets, front and back bar, is it opens up 2 additional slots. And of course, trainee being one of the most popular ones. I've got an arcane trainee ring, and then I'm using Death Dealer's Fate, and then all 3 jewelry are running spell damage glyphs. So you've got a recovery bonus on Scorian. You have a max magicka on Scorian. You have 2 additional max magickas on Spell Power Cure. And you retain the weapon damage regardless of which bar you're on, but you can only have one or the other, obviously. So you're gaining 1 weapon and spell damage at all times. And of course, SBC, when you overheal yourself or an ally, you give the target Major Courage for 5 seconds, which increases weapon and spell damage by an additional 430. So this is a great set. As a healer, you're constantly going to be doing healing, which results in overhealing, which essentially is the person's at 100% health, and then they get some sort of a heal from you, whether it's a direct heal or a heal over time, some sort of a heal, and that will trigger this. And 5 seconds isn't a long time span, but again, as a healer, you've got so many different forms of heals that are going either ground-based healing or direct healing, that this is not hard to proc at all. So it's up a lot. And other than the heavy attacks on the back bar, I do have some buffs in the back. Blockade of Storms along with Extended Ritual. This is another source of healing. When we're running through mobs, I've got Repentance on here as well, so I can heal that way, as well as Stamina for myself, and then Channeled Focus as a buff. So there is a little bit of time spent on the back as far as putting these buffs back down, but the bulk of my time is actually spent on the front bar, where I'm doing more healing, more healing, more healing, more healing, more healing. So there's a lot of healing going on, so SPC is up most of the time. I'm also buffing the group, typically with rapid regen, or radiating regen, I guess, before we engage in mob groups or boss fights. So I'm trying to top everybody off from the get-go, and then giving them this, which usually will trigger the Major Courage as well. And then Magma Incarnate, this again was from Dread Cellar. This was I thought this was a really solid option for healers. I tried running it on a tank. I didn't have as much luck from the tank perspective, but as a healer, when you heal yourself or a group member with a single target heal ability, which we are using Onto the Dead, so this will trigger it. You're going to give them Minor Courage and Minor Resolve, so this is the minor buff equivalent, so it's 215 weapon and spell damage, plus the Minor Resolve, which is almost 3,000 additional armor, good for 10 seconds. If the other members are close enough, the energy will then bounce to each of the other 3 members, or 2 members, I guess. So essentially for 4-man group content, this is great if you're relatively close to one another, because everybody's going to get this buff by me healing one individual. And of course the one piece being mag and stam recovery is always going to be useful from a healing perspective, so I'm getting more recovery from this as well. Lightning staff on the back, either lightning or ice would work fine, I think. It kind of depends on where you want to focus. The lightning is going to give you concussion. The ice, I believe, gives you major brittle, which increases the crit damage, plus some additional shields, and there are basically either choice is a good choice. I think I just happen to go with lightning specifically for this setup, because in order to trigger Scorian, you're doing heavy attacks, and I find heavy attacks are much easier to do and ultimately more useful with a lightning staff. Excuse me, than with a the ice staff. The heavy attacks with the ice staff are similar to the flame staff, where it takes the 2+ seconds to build up, whereas the heavy attack for the lightning, you're always going to be doing some amount of damage, and then you get the benefit of lightning where it basically spreads to nearby mobs as well to do additional damage and potentially off balance them. So back bar in this case, I'm actually running infused with a weapon and spell damage glyph. I know some people run charged with a shock damage to try to increase the off balance uptime. This is kind of a compromise. It's giving me higher weapon and spell damage, which then boosts the power of my heals, and it's infused with wall of elements down, so as long as I keep the wall of elements down, I essentially have 100% uptime on that, so it's boosting the power of my heals the whole time. Night Flame is another really good option if you're running as a healer, but I've run Night Flame in the past and I wanted to do something different with the setup. And when Dread Cellar came out, I saw this as well as Scoring and thought, you know, both of these would be good things to run on a healer. It does require a little bit more time on the back bar, given that you're heavy attacking in order to achieve these buffs. A standard heavy attack, I believe, is a little over 2 seconds per heavy attack. So in order to get these buffs, it also is a little bit of a timing issue in that if you're trying to maximize it, you want to heavy attack sometime within about 8 seconds of the first buff being over, and then in order to get the second 10 seconds. So there's probably a little bit of downtime depending on whether you can time it just right. And of course your healing is your primary concentration, so you're on the front bar a lot, so it takes a little bit, and this is a new build for me, so certainly don't claim a level of expertise with the timing on this, but with practice, I think this actually could be a really nice setup. There's some new items that are coming, new sets. In fact, they're coming in the next chapter release that actually look like they're going to be solid competitors. There's a crit set I know specifically that's looking pretty good. Several of the mythic items are also looking like they might make for some pretty interesting builds. So this might change, but this is a new build, so I probably won't mess with this for a while. I want to run this for a bit and get more familiar and more comfortable with it, and then maybe at that point I might tweak it. But so far, this is, for the content that I've run with it so far, this has actually worked pretty well. As far as champion points go, green tree is kind of, who cares? I generally, for a healer, I do kind of dedicate the points over into the healing tree. So Soothing Tide, Swift Renewal, Focused Mending. And then once I'm in this tree, kind of up to you. There's a couple interesting things in here I like from the Brink. This is actually a really solid. I'm currently using Salve of Renewal. Whenever you remove a harmful effect from yourself or an ally, sanctify the ground beneath them, heal them, and allies within 8 meters for 1433 per stage. So I'm getting 6,400 health, which can crit. And I'm throwing down Ritual of Retribution, which is going to cleanse me as well as offer a synergy that they can use to cleanse. So this can trigger a lot of the time. Another good option, though, I don't have enough champion points to show you, but is this. You can see if you get full points into it, this will give them, it's 30 seconds per target, but it's an 11,000 point damage shield when you heal yourself or an ally under 25%. 6 seconds uptime. So this is actually another really solid option for healers that can potentially save someone's bacon. So either one of these are actually nice options. I like to take either one. And then really the rest of the points, I mean, as a healer, you could potentially try to boost some additional things, like here you're increasing crit chance. But because you can only have so many slottables, and the bulk of my time is spent healing, I prefer the actual healing slottables, and one of the, save them from the brink in one form or another. These are slottables, so of course you wouldn't be able to take those in addition to all those. Penetration doesn't really help with healing. This, might if you have a bunch of extra points. So, pretty straightforward. Over here again, as a healer, with status effects or negative effects, because I'm cleansing so often, these cost reduction and various things I will often take as a damage dealer, but as a healer with a cleanse, I tend to not use these because you're going to be cleansing so much that the uptime on these is going to be a lot lower. So I just kind of went with the standard: more health, more armor, more recovery. And again, I'm a healer, so I decided I like having reduced resurrection time. So this is a useful one to have. And then just kind of put points into some of the other passives here. I currently am showing the wrong food because I was set up with the... Oh, wrong food and the wrong Mundus. So this should be the Atronac. And so on my damage dealer, it was a stamina damage dealer. I run the Serpent and Lavafoot. On this build, I run the Atronac and Ghastly Eyeball, which gives you mag and mag recovery. Skills, pretty straightforward. Some people, a lot of people do it differently, but Combat Prayer, this technically, with this particular setup, this is something you can probably remove. I could replace this with one of the Resto Staff abilities like Grand Healing. In fact, I probably should. This is just kind of the initial loadout I went with. You're gaining, the reason why is you're gaining Minor Berserk and Minor Resolve when I'm putting this down. It's a heal, but you're gaining the additional buffs. And if you recall, when I heal them, they're also gaining Minor Resolve from Magma Incarnate. So it's a duplication that you wouldn't necessarily want or need. So we can use Healing and Duration, Restore Magicka. I like the more powerful healing. So you could use this. Either morph, depending on if you want Magicka back or not. This is probably a better option. The 28 meter range, 8 meter radius, so it's going to cover more area than this. And if I'm healing them, granted it's a single target. I believe that's Incarnate. Yeah, single target. But I am running this sometimes just to proc that buff. But generally speaking, there's always someone in need of heals, so activating this will activate Magma Incarnate. So they're already getting that buff. So it's kind of redundant. Running this gives them additional healing in a large area. A large area. It doesn't stack anymore. It's been a few years since it was able to stack, but it's still a solid heal. Inner Light basically is giving you more max magicka. It's gaining you, well, now it's gaining you major savagery and prophecy, increasing your crit rating. Crit as a healer is a good thing to have because it's going to increase the chance that your heals will crit, making them more powerful. Radiating Regeneration. This is the one that heals up to 3 nearby allies. The other one is a powerful heal, but only heals, I believe, 1 target. So being a healer, I want to heal as many people as possible, so I take this one. Purifying Light, great skill, not so much for the damage. I mean, it can be for the damage as well, but I take it for both the damage as well as the healing pool that it leaves behind. When the effect ends, you and allies near the enemy are healed. So especially popping this on a boss means that anybody that's near to the boss is getting some additional healing. Honor the Dead is a single target heal. It gives... the other one heals an additional ally, so this one will target whoever's at lowest health, but this does a better job. It's more healing, basically. And you get potentially get some magicka back. Right now I'm running Panacea. I don't even think this is morphed. Yeah, this isn't even morphed yet. Because again, this is a relatively recent build. Probably when the time comes, depending on the group, both of these actually are nice options. I think most people take the Lights Champion for the major force. If you've got a good group who does regular good DPS, that you're not currently running, if you're not running Aggressive Horn also gives you major force. As you can see, I'm lower on PvP on this one, so I don't have this unlocked yet. But if you already have Warhorn, then I would definitely take the other morph. And in fact, yeah, I guess it's kind of optional that you could replace this with Warhorn. Would be another good option overall for the group, because even if you take the Lights Champion, I believe it hits one target. Any friendly target you heal gains major healing you or a nearby ally. Yeah, so this is a single target. It's a solid heal. It gives them major force, but it's only going to affect one person. Versus Warhorn will affect the whole group. So I would definitely recommend, if you've got Warhorn, running that over this. Again, this is kind of that initial loadout that I went with. Channel Focus, this is going to give you magicka back. It's going to give you your major resistances. This gives you a heal per second. Scales off max health, so this is better for tanks than it is for damage or healers, but this is still, it's some additional healing for you, which is nice. Blockade of Storms, I took the one that actually lasts longer. For damage dealers, I will use the Unstable Wall of Elements just because it's a little more damage. But this one, I want this to actually last as long as possible in order to keep the Berserker enchant up. Radiant Glory, this is your execute. This is kind of an optional slot, I guess, if somebody else in your group, especially the damage dealers, has an execute, then you can swap this out for something else. Some good options. If you need a range interrupt, you can throw Force Shock in here. Wow, this hasn't been morphed either. It looks like you'd want to take the Crushing Shock morph of this. It gives you a ranged interrupt, so that's handy depending on the fight. If resources are an issue, you can go under Undaunted and use Necrotic Orb. Normally you would take the Energy Orb because it heals enemies heals allies instead of damaging enemies. You don't want to heal the enemies. That's not good for your group. So you can go with this instead. Again, a lot of these I don't have morphed. The Mystic Orb is really designed more for mag damage dealers. But I suppose as a healer, if you wanted to do some additional damage, you could do that as well. And then this will restore resources with the synergy for people as well. So this works similar as a Templar. I can use Blazing Spear, which gives them a synergy to restore resources, or Luminous Shards. Gives them a little bit more. So you can use this as a Templar. If you're not a Templar, oftentimes they'll take this instead in order to provide resources. But a lot of the people that I end up playing with are used to sustaining themselves, as opposed to a trial group which is used to everybody else sustaining the damage dealers. So it kind of depends on your configuration where you're going to be running this build. This is really designed more for 4-person content, based on the sets that I'm running and kind of how I got it laid out. So this is a good option, or this is a good option, either one here. Extended Ritual under the Restoring Light. I took this morph as the healer because, of course, this is actually healing your allies instead of doing damage to the enemies, similar to the orb. This will cleanse five effects from you. That's not really as critical as overall the healing that this provides. The main reason this is here. And then this is another flex spot. I like Repentance. A huge fan of this. It's free. You are going to spend some time on boss fights where this is, if it's a single lone boss, this isn't going to be very useful. But most of the bosses that I've fought in the past have some sort of mobs that are spawning as part of the fight. A lot of the majority of the bosses, I'll say. And in between the bosses, when you have all those mobs, this is extremely useful and a great way to heal the group, as well as give you healing and stamina back. And it's free. So why not? It's also increasing your recovery just from having it slotted. So I like running this, but you can certainly swap this out. There's not much else. I suppose if you want to do some additional damage, you can throw Puncturing Sweep on there, but this build, from a sustain standpoint, you're heavy attacking multiple times on the back bar. You can heavy attack on the front bar. Using a Resto Staff heavy attacking, you're gaining a lot of magicka back from that. So a lot of your stuff is basically heavy attacking and casting skills. You're not spending a lot of time light attack weaving. It's not really what this build is designed to do, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. You're on the back bar, so you could potentially put in, you could go with one of the, like a ward ally, which provides a shield for you or your ally. That's a good one to use. And it does provide some additional healing. Being that this is wearing most of the light armor, you could run one of the annulment options. This gives you a shield. If you wanted a shield, if you're in harder content, a shield is a very nice thing. If you do dampen magic, it's going to give you... This should be a larger magic shield. I'm guessing once I put it on, you're going to see the difference. Oh, damage cap 60% of your max health, so it's probably capped already. So 9681 is the shield strength of that. And then this is 6655 or 6874. So this doesn't shield for quite as much. But if you look at the description, the shield strength is increased by up to 100%, depending on the severity of the target's wounds. So if I had to choose between the two, I would probably go with this one, because it's probably going to be close to the dampen magic, given that they're always going to be at least somewhat lower on health. Plus this has the ability to heal. And this will heal either you or someone else, as opposed to the harness magic or dampen magic that's strictly for you. So from a healer perspective, I would probably go with this if you want a shield. Let's see what else we have. Trying to see if there's anything else. You could definitely slot Degeneration. In fact, this might be a better option back here, depending, or maybe if resources aren't an issue, this would be a good one to have here. This is overall going to give you your major brutality and sorcery. In our case, sorcery is what we're looking for, which is increasing 20% increase to your spell damage, which is overall going to boost the damage that you're doing and boost the power of your heals, so that would be a nice option as well. Right now we don't actually have, unless you're running spell power pots, which I'm not, this would be the only option that you have for major sorcery. So that would be a good option. As a healer, I suppose if your tank's not already running it, you could run one of the altar morphs here. This is actually a nice option for the group to provide healing. It is a fixed location once you put it down, but it's definitely a nice source of healing over time. And plus they have the synergy that they can use for either 40 or 65% of their max health to gain even more healing from that. Vigor, I don't think I'd recommend Vigor as a mag healer. Again, some tanks will run the Echoing Vigor option as a group heal, but I find that the cost, the bang for your buck on this isn't as great when you're a Magicka user. You're dipping into a stamina pool, which is kind of your off pool, but at the same time, even as a healer, you still need stamina for dodge rolling, blocking, breaking free, that kind of thing. And you don't have a huge pool to begin with, so I probably wouldn't recommend going that route. And there's not much else here. Yeah, there's not much else. So, yeah, that's probably what I would do. What I would recommend for optional skills. And I think that's about it. Healer is in some ways kind of like tank. There's a little more flexibility in what you can do, what you can run, both for the skills that you're running as well as the sets. It's kind of up to you as to where you want to focus your efforts on, whether it's contributing directly to the group through healing, whether it's indirectly through buffing or debuffing. I know the latter is probably the more popular option, at least for the trial groups. But 4-man content is a little more flexible, I think, which is nice. But I don't think you can go wrong with the SPC. It's always going to be a solid set, assuming they don't nerf it. And the rest of the options are kind of up to you. Even the Death Dealer's Fate, this is actually the first time I'm running this officially on a build. I considered a couple of different other options, but nothing really jumped out at me. I suppose if you wanted the speed, I mean, it's always fun to run the Ring of the Wild Hunt, just to give you some additional speed and movement. But I thought this overall might be the better option, because as the stacks build, you're gaining stamina, health, and magicka, and of course more magicka is going to make my heals my heals more powerful. More health, stamina pools generally, obviously that's going to help keep me alive and survive a little longer. So that's it. Covered champion points, covered the gear, covered the skills. Mundus again is, in this particular case, is Atronak. The food, I guess we can actually switch over now. The food is Ghastly Eyeball. Let's see. We'll go switch our Mundus Stone. In the next chapter coming out, thankfully, I guess it's been about hasn't been a year yet. I think the Armory came out was it fourth quarter last year? Time kind of slips away. I'm not sure when the Armory came out. However long it's been, I want to say it's been at least 6 months. The chapter base game of the chapter release coming up here will add Mundus stones to the Armory system, so that it will finally save Mundus when you save your builds, which is a definite upgrade, and I don't know why they didn't add that in to begin with. but glad to see that they finally added it in. Now if they could just save food, so you could swap back and forth with the food. Oh, fun. Got booted. Boss is kicking me out. One second. Try that again. Yeah, the Mundus, why they didn't account for the Mundus initially when they were designing the system seems crazy to me. I'm not sure what they were thinking, considering I'm moving between builds, tank builds, damage builds, healing builds. Why on earth would they think that it would be the same Mundus for all of those things? It doesn't make any sense. So thankfully they're adding that into the what gets saved in the armory, which is nice. So worst case at this point, the only downside basically is you might end up wasting food because you've got stamina food on, and now you have to switch over to mag because you need a different build for some reason. Try this again. I got food on here. I'll give you some semblance of an idea of the stats once I have correct Mundus stone. And for those that are looking for visual effects, these sets actually have no idea who this is. Again, a lot of the time you've got extra Magicka Restore on your Resto staff. It's been like that for a very, very long time. Fully charged heavy attacks restore 30% more Magicka on the Resto staff. So whether you're heavy attacking on your Resto staff or you're heavy attacking on your lightning staff on the back bar, either one you're going to be restoring resources. And you can certainly light attack, weave in between hitting your various things. If you want to do that just out of habit, that's fine. But essentially, I'm not having any sustained issues on this setup. In our current configuration, running spell damage and chance on all 3 pieces of jewelry. I'm sitting at 2357 for mag recovery. 34,000 Magicka, 23,000 health, 14,000 for stamp. Spell damage by default is 3161, but you've got the back bar, Berserker Enchant, that's going to boost your spell damage. You've got Major Courage from SPC, which increases by another 430. So this is 452, 430 from this. You've got Minor Courage, which is another 215 from Magma Incarnate. And then you've got the Scorian, which is either going to boost your recovery or it's going to boost your weapon and spell damage. See if we can... Okay. See if we can go out and find a world boss to slowly, super slowly kill. Maybe I can convince Good Life to come over and help me take on a world boss here for a second to show you how this works here. Where are we? What do we have here? Give you an idea of the healing components. Oh, and I think I forgot, got sidetracked here. So the visual effects that you gain from the sets here. Scorian, well, I can show you that one as well. Scorian basically has like a blue-green circle. I want to say it's 28 meters. Okay, it doesn't actually tell you on the tooltip, but I want to say it's somewhere in that. It's a fairly large radius when you have the recovery going, and then when you heavy attack the second time, as long as it's within that first 10 seconds to gain the weapon and let's see. Yep, we're in a group, so you can actually see where I am. Going up to the world boss north of Ralka. So right now, so this is escalating fate. This is the Death Dealer's fate. This is a pretty cool visual effect. When you're in combat, basically, you'll gain stacks of that. Oh, look, Good Life. So she's going to come up and help, so I'm not taking forever to kill a world boss. So that's one of the visual effects you'll gain. And then Spell Power Cure. When I heal myself, you gain the purple glowing on the arms. That's an indicator that SPC is active. And Magma Incarnate also has a visual. It's like a reddish orange star ball thing. It's hard to describe. That basically will jump from you to other members. So if you're into the visual effects, which I definitely like having a visual effect, it not only cues you into that something's working, but it's kind of a neat effect just visually to look at. All of these sets have something to offer, so. Alright. So, check it out. Heal before, SPC.
Arise, my beauty. Taste the air once. Your father come up. Charge!
Pop. Push the back bar, we'll heavy attack once. So this has a blue effect, see the blue circle. And then we heavy attack again. And it switches to red. So this means that your weapon and spell damage is now active from Scorians. I don't know. Heavy attack once. There's the blue. Heavy attack again immediately. Now we gain the weapon and spell damage. And then everybody inside that circle is gaining the weapon and spell damage or the recovery. So it's not too difficult to play. It is front bar, back bar. Oh, these are sacrificial chickens and goats, not for eating. The Death Dealer's fate is still burning on me, I guess. And from that, let's see, we got... Didn't actually get up that high. I believe in 4-man content, I've seen this go as high as around 6,000, so it can jump up considerably. But again, you're a healer, so it's not so much about the damage. It's more about getting the heals. Our crit, even actually on this setup, is not actually that high. It's only 29%. So we could potentially go with a different Mundus if you're comfortable. In fact, at 2137, you could certainly. At 23 is because we're on that back bar. We're gaining the 15% here. If you're comfortable with it and you're because you're doing so many heavy attacks, you can certainly swap the Mundus out for the Thief if you want more crit. You can go with the Ritual, which will ultimately give you more healing power, which is nice. So either one of those are a nice option if you're comfortable, because this is certainly more than enough to sustain, and I know a lot of people can get by on less. I like having more than I need as a healer, just so I know I'm not going to run out. But again, this is first round, kind of what I'm running right now. I may tweak it a bit and then do an quick update video from there. So that's it. Thank you for the assistance. Bowl mixer. That's the healer build for the Templar, Bag Templar. And she's gonna apparently beat my ass now. She's looking angry. She doesn't know who she's messing with. Doesn't even know. Now it's time to duel. Oh wait, you're in my group. This is not gonna work. Yeah, it's not working. Wow. It took a bit to even kick in. They may be having some lag issues again. Last couple of days it's been pretty laggy. Not sure what's going on, but Zoe. Alright. Well, we might be doing some follow-up here if I can convince Stevie and Hope to hop in. Maybe we'll do some dungeon streaming here later. We got to get Stevie's new build set up, depending on his gear, and you know, he wanted to set up a tank build, a new tank build, but at the same time, a DPS build as well. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm gonna wrap it. Thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed the build. Have fun testing it out. So Dread Cellar and White Gold Tower is where SPC comes from. This can be whatever you want. If you have a couple trainee rings, just as another option, that's another good option. Especially if you can get a hold of the gold ones, so you're kind of getting that max level stats. Because the two-piece item is more max magicka, so that's also a nice setup that you can run if you don't want the Death Dealer's Fate, or you haven't gotten a hold of this yet. Alright, that's a wrap. Thanks.